Hello, I'm Kerry George with CIBN TV. You can find us on YouTube at CIBN TV. Today, I'm going to be talking about Boudica. And if you have ever felt like you have been abused, abandoned, or betrayed, you're going to want to listen in to find out what female warriors before you have done when this has happened to them and what you can do about it today. So stay tuned for Boudica. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about Boudica and what happened to her in 60 AD and how does it apply to you today. So if you've ever felt like you have been abused, abandoned, or betrayed, this is an incredible story of somebody who had all of these things happen to them and how they rose up like out of the ashes to do something phenomenal for their people. So where does the story start? Well, it's about 60 AD, a long time ago in a land far away. The land was actually Great Britain, as we know it today, southern Great Britain. Boudica and her husband lived in a community there, and they had been in league with the Romans. So this group of people, they called him a consort. So that meant that he wasn't really officially Roman, her husband, but he was kind of watching out for things for the Romans in that area. And they had built up a sizable kingdom, and they had people pretty much prospering. Things were going along well until Boudica's husband dies. He passes away. Now, he must have been a pretty good guy because he actually had a will. And in his will, he left all of his belongings to Nero and his wife. They were supposed to continue in league together. But whether Nero got the message or just didn't care, it's unclear in history. But instead of that happening, Nero's forces decided that no, this land is going to come under the control of Britannia, and they're going to come and seize it. And so they didn't take into account what the man's wishes were. They just marched in and took over. And in true Roman fashion, they didn't do it in a nice way. They didn't show up and say, well, we're here to take over and you got to live with that. Nope, they came with violence and a lack of mercy. So they show up and they flog Boudica and they rape her two daughters in front of her. Now, if you can imagine the betrayal and the trauma that someone would experience in seeing that kind of thing, these were supposed to be their allies. These were supposed to be people that they trusted, and they were there to represent Rome in this community. And now this is being done to her and in front of her. Her indignation and her anger and her wrath rise up, and justifiably so. I often wonder when I hear stories like this, I don't understand why male armies equate rape with taking over a community. It's been going on for thousands of years. I mean, the Vikings did it. They literally rolled in and they rape, pillage, and plunder. It comes with the whole thing of war. And even today in modern times, you hear stories of things that happened in Vietnam and Korea and, in different wars where men just get out of control with blood, lust, and rage, or I don't know what it is. But it's bizarre to me that this act goes along with conquer. If females were leading the army, I can say without a doubt that would never happen. How can I say that? Because just look at the statistics, okay? It's very rare for women to commit that kind of a crime. It has happened occasionally, but certainly not with the same frequency. And this is what was going on in her time. Here she is, and she's watching this injustice happen right in front of her. And then I don't know how they leave or something. They, in some way or another, she gets control of the army of her people. And Boudica kicks some hiney. She is angry, okay? And of course, why wouldn't she be? And she sees the Romans now as the scourge of the planet, something that needs to be dealt with, something that should be annihilated, and rightfully so. I mean, here she was in a position where they had come into league with this government and had tried to, do what they were asked to do, and then they were treated like that. But that wasn't the only thing. There was also high taxes being extracted from her people, and many other injustices happening in the land. So Boudica has some leadership skills, apparently, because as she rises up, she becomes the leader of an armed forces that kicks the Romans hiney. Okay, 60, 70, 80,000 people, Romans, are exterminated at her hand over the next months and couple of years. Crazy. So she definitely had some leadership skills. She had some fighting skills, and being angry about what happened to herself and her daughters, she went out and kicked some butt. So after a few years, they were able to put her down. Actually, they won against her in a battle, and they didn't actually kill her. She dies, and history tells us that it may have been suicide or it may have been sickness. It's really unclear. What is interesting and clear about Boudica is that there are speeches that she gave that were recorded. So as a leader, she was also a strong orator. She was able to talk and communicate and motivate the men in that army, because it wasn't an army of women, it was an army of men. She motivated them to stand up and fight back for a just cause. And she was able to do that in an oppressed community. Really, that's amazing when you think about, the feat of that. Just amazing that they followed her and that was accomplished by her hand. I wonder today what history would look like if more women had risen up and fought back when we suffered from oppression and abuse and betrayal. What would history look like if we'd have done more of that? It's a very interesting idea, isn't it? It's a concept that we haven't really explored much. But what can we do today? What can we learn from this? Because I am not suggesting that you go out and start a war. Okay. I'm not suggesting that you take up arms and start fighting back. I'm not suggesting that. What I am suggesting is that as women, we are surrounded by oppression on a day-to-day basis, and we tend to overlook it. What do I mean by that? Well, we're living in the Western world, which is mostly women feel like we have a lot of freedom. And we could run for politics, for example. We could become lawyers, doctors. We could become judges. But we tend to not take on those positions. And I'd like to ask you, why not? And why aren't we encouraging our youth, our young women, to take on those positions? Because it would make an incredible difference in our society. You might say, well, I'm just one person, and what difference could I make? Well, Boudica was one person, and we are surrounded by stories of one person making a huge difference in our society. All kinds of women, present and past, making a huge difference in society. Susan B. Anthony is one. Mother Teresa is another. You see, we're still surrounded by oppression. 80% of the planet doesn't let women dress the way they want, speak out when they want to, or lead anything, even today. It's only in the Western world that we have a voice. Why aren't we using that voice to affect the whole world? Why aren't we running for politics or becoming judges? Why is that important? Because in our countries of the United States and Canada, Great Britain, the judges have a lot of power. In some cases, they even, create laws. Today in our countries, I live in Canada and I have many friends who are part of the US. I see things like pedophilia not being addressed at all, just letting it go on. Small types of punishments. California recently released 7,000 of them back into the general population. Hardly made the news. Nobody seems to care. If more women are in power, more women are in positions of leadership, that message will get through that is unacceptable. Why is it being allowed right now? We've got 10,000 years of male domination, ladies. 10,000 years. And the guys are making the laws. And when you have wealthy, powerful men who are making the laws, and they like to do a little bit of that, they're not going to create the laws that would inevitably cause them some pain. So they don't create them and they don't support them. You might say, oh, that's crazy, Kerry. That's nuts. Well, why hasn't it changed then? There isn't a country on earth that has dealt with that issue. Not one. And we're still 80% male dominated in every country on earth, at least. In some cases, much higher than that. We're not addressing the issue. We don't even want to talk about the issue. Ladies, we can make a difference, not just by talking about the issue, but rising up and becoming the people who make those decisions. That would make a difference. And you might think, well, we're not making a difference, but yes, we are. Absolutely, we are. In the last 100 years, you might not realize this, but statistically, poverty has decreased about 20% worldwide. The ability to feed the world has increased by about 20% worldwide. Do you know what else has happened? In the Western world, we have about 20% leadership in that same time period. It's math. Okay, ladies, the more of us that become powerful, take up our positions in government, in being lawyers, being judges, being police, being in position of authority, we do impact our planet, and we should. And we should encourage our daughters as well. Do we have to wait for something horrible to happen in our family like Boudica did? Why wait? Consider that this is the future now, and prepare our young women now to do amazing and awesome things and to make a difference in the world through policy change, through speaking out, and through gaining the confidence that they need as young women to stand out, to stand up, and to be counted. The story of Boudica is really a story from, coming out of the ashes and creating something and fighting back. But we don't need to wait for that to happen. We can fight back now. We can champion a cause and make a difference. And I would like to encourage you today to think about that. Some of us are moms. Some of us are grandmas. As we speak to that growing generation, encourage them to become all that they can be. And especially encourage the young women that we do have freedoms in our countries. And we should use every one of them to gain even more. I'm Kerry George, and I'm with CIBN Connect. That is my company. I bought the Boys Club about 12, 13 years ago and have turned it into an empire, a global empire. What can you do? Let's do it together. Let's change the world. Men and women working together is an awesome thing. When we have a few good men and a lot of awesome women, we can do powerful things. But gals, it's up to us now. Let's rise up and be all that we can be. So join me on CIBN TV at YouTube and find out more.